Hey everyone, so in this video I'm actually going to try and create a potential counter to the trader. So this is going to be a defensive counter team, of course, and I'm using a variety of free-to-play as well as pay-to-play toons. I know people will say technically all the S-class toons are free-to-play at this point, but that I feel like that only really applies once they enter the Torches roadmap. So Aaron is the first toon on this team. S-Class leader toon. He was part of the Broken Glass event, and he's actually a really solid leader, giving 40% HP and defense to all fast and tough teammates. 58 AP rush, deals 350% damage to up to 3 enemies. They also get minus 25% attack for 3 turns, and minus 20 AP. So he's not a huge damage dealer, but he does help control the enemy. He also has a pretty useful active skill, Impair, Elusive, and AP gain. So up to 3 enemies get Impair for 2 turns, and then this character, so Aaron, and then one other teammate get Elusive for 2 turns, and then he also gains 35% AP, which is pretty standard. So he's a pretty good defensive toon that way. As you see, I have 10,000 defense, almost 7,300 HP, and he's maxed out with vet rings. I don't have any platinum mods on him. I am not happy though with the defense versus strong mod, only because there are so few strong toons that are actually used on attack, so I feel like this type of mod is kind of a waste. I like to make sure that my toons are modded against the current meta, and just as a reminder, this is actually not my normal account. This is my content creator account where I can create content for you guys just to kind of showcase some of the things that I figure out, and I really enjoy being able to figure things out for you folks, and bringing you good content is my overall goal, so I really hope that I'm able to do that for you guys and gals. So big defensive type of mod set going on here. I'm just trying to make him tanky. I found that in recent times we've been seeing a lot more tanky defenses. It just feels like the fast rushing defenses aren't as effective, especially because that last $10 offer for Payback Negan has made it much easier to counter some of those turn one defenses without really having to do much. It's just a passive team. So Aaron here, I have 5-starred his weapon, and I've weapon swapped it actually, just so that we have the fast healing ability. So this fast healing ability actually stacks. So all 3 of my yellow toons on the team have this, meaning that every turn 6 toons will regain 30% HP, because this is one of the weapon stats that actually does stack with other ones. As you see, the weapon is not perfect, but it's enough for this type of team. The next toon that I have on this team is Rosita. She is who I would consider still a pay-to-play character at the moment because she has not entered the Torches roadmap, but she's getting near it only because she's in one of the stashes right now. I think that there's about 1,000 of her cards or so in the stash, so she is becoming more readily available. She's a very good toon overall, bide specialist, especially as an S-class, so for every 2k damage that she takes, she outputs 3,000, and as we see, mine has 11,000 HP, meaning she can take a lot of hits before dying, and hopefully with her high defense, it means that a toon will not be able to take her out in a single attack, unless of course it's infection or high amounts of bleed. Her rush at 76 AP, she can regain 50% of her HP, which will help with infection. This occurs over 2 turns. She also recovers from normalize, meaning her bide will come into play again. Up to 2 teammates will gain 50% bonus HP, which won't actually affect infection at all, but the bonus defense would be nice just because it makes the other characters, of course, more tanky. When we take a look at her active skill, it's an attack down and taunt. So turn 2 active skill, pretty useful, 2 turn cooldown. So the specific target enemy gets minus 75% attack for 2 turns, and then all other enemies, excluding that one I guess, will get taunt for a single turn. It's kind of an interesting active skill because the toons that are attacking her don't have an attack down on them, meaning they're still hitting pretty hard. She has another defensive mod set build using HP mods. You can see that I added a reflect damage mod on her just because her defense is lower compared to her HP. So I'm hoping that if anyone uses basic attacks to rush her, we can get a combination of the weapon proccing, as well as her mod, for example. She also has the fast healing ability, which I mentioned before. So I think this is almost like the ideal type of weapon for Rosita. Some people do put a huge bonus to AP on attack or when defending, and I think either one could definitely work. I've seen Rositas who have impenetrable defense as well, which is basically absolute defense, but it can also apply, I believe it's slow to the enemy. So there's a lot of different combinations you can use here. The next character in this team is 6-star Slater, and I'm on the fence about him. You know, like, he's kind of a free-to-play player, but also kind of not. He's been in some boxes and stuff, and he's been available in the game, but I have him here because I like that his rush revives but also focuses. The main part is that he focuses, because if your team is focused, it means you can ignore the effects of taunt and confuse. And of course, as a commander, it means you have a bit more control over what your team does. You can create a bit more chaos. He also has an active revive ability. So I just think Slater is a pretty solid toon to have. You could sub in anyone else you want. If you want a bit more of a tanky defense, you could put in like Payback Shiva, for example, in order to discourage rushes. So here I'm not a huge fan of the mods that I have going on. The defense when stunned and the stun resist mod are kind of redundant, so I'm going to switch this to a confuse resist mod instead. There's just no point, in my opinion, having stun resist, but then also defense when stunned. It's like you're trying to stop the stun, but that also means this other mod that gives you extra defense when you're stunned, you're reducing the amount of times that happens. There are better mod choices to make. That's the basics of it. Regarding his weapon, I am going to try to go with a very heavy defensive weapon. So I'm not going to go with this one that just has defense, a huge bonus to AP when attacking, impair, and so on. Instead, I want to go for a tankier type of weapon with elusive impair instead. I think this is more effective. This one has more HP, it has defense. It also has a light daze, so when taking critical hit damage, there is a 20% chance to daze the enemy for a couple turns. So that can be really effective, especially because we have toons like the Trader, of course. So if a Trader ever ends up attacking because he's forced to for some particular reason, he could end up getting dazed. But it's very unlikely as well, because unless his rush is charged, he will be using his active skill a lot. So that's actually a trick that I would like to recommend to people. If you can charge his rush, charge it. Especially if you have your team focused, because he will taunt you, but if you're focused, you're ignoring that ability, and it also means he's not applying infection. So the next toon that I have on this team anyway is Frost, and he's just a big tanky human shield. He has a really great rush, which usually on human shields you don't want to level, but in this case, he can revive a teammate with 50% of their max HP, and then all teammates regain up to 30% of their max HP for 5 turns. So that's a really effective healing ability that can definitely be leveraged very easily. Like, I've come across some very tanky Frost defenses, and whenever he rushes, it's a real nuisance. His active skill is not something that I would personally level. I know it's leveled here, but I didn't have a choice over that. Ideally, his active skill would be at 1 for 8, because you want him to be shielding as much as possible and not using that bonus HP. His combat mods, he has a very defensive build. I could switch out the grays for a reflect damage mod, but right now I'm just trying to mitigate the amount of damage that's actually being applied to him. I know some people often mod Frost with a taunt resist mod or even confuse resist now because of Jackie as a leader, but I'm hoping that my Slater will be able to rush at some point, applying focus to the whole team, so then I don't have to mod against those abilities. That's one way that I look at teams when I'm building them. How can my other toons' abilities help me decide like what mods that I need and which ones I can kind of pass over because of their abilities. With his weapon, I'm actually not going with a dazed weapon. I'm going to go with a kind of unique weapon that I actually saw in War that I think will be really valuable. So the 4th slot, instead of light daze, it's where I can gain 10% HP for each debuff on the character, and the different debuffs are like attack down, defense down, infection, stun, taunt, impair, and so on. So this actually adds up really fast, and it's a nice way of recovering from infection quickly. Because if infection is applied to him, he's already regaining 10% HP, so long as there's no 100% heal reduction. Now when we move on to Dr. Stevens, he's the free S-Class that everyone is capable of getting right now. He's a very selfish toon that he applies everything to himself except his active skill, which can be used on the second turn, fourth turn, and so on, where two teammates can actually recover from 100% heal reduction, or really any heal reduction, which obviously is really important if someone is attacking you with a Wangfa and Trader combination, or Elena and Mateo combination, just someone with 100% heal reduction. So with Dr. Stevens, his mod set is very defensive as well, even though he's an offensive character with his honor roll. But I don't really have to mod him to be offensive because his honor roll will help stack his attack up for me anyway. So instead, I have defense versus tough, for example, because there's just a lot of tough toons still on offense. Now, the weapon that I have him holding is actually not this one. It's another fast healing weapon that has some attack on it. It's the best one that I have because the other one is actually on a different character on the same team, and it's just to help again with that infection to actually recover from the HP loss. So by obviously getting HP every turn, it just heals me against infection, but also heals my team in general. So I'm going to be putting together a counter team now. I'm going to create a team that has Trader in it and try to attack my own defense on auto and see kind of what happens. So the first team that I'm putting together is one that does not have Wangfa on it, or Elena, or Dale, or anyone with 100% heal reduction. This is just to show kind of why you need a toon like that who has 100% heal reduction to really run the Trader to his full potential, because a lot of players are definitely going to be crafting that 10% healing weapon for fast toons, where for every fast toon on the team, two teammates will get 10% healing on that turn per fast toon. So it really adds up quickly, and it can be used very effectively, so you definitely have to watch out for that if you're running the Trader on attack. Without the 100% heal reduction, the 15% or even the 25% infection just isn't high enough, I find, especially if someone is using Frost on defense. Frost, when he rushes, of course, gives 30% HP for 5 turns, which is a long healing effect. So if there's no way to control that, it can be very difficult for this type of Trader team to break through. And this defense is nothing too special. Lots of people can be working towards Frost now because he's on the Torches roadmap. Dr. Stevens is, of course, that free S-Class that we're all getting. Aaron was the last free S-Class that we got from the Broken Glass event. Slater is here, and I feel like a lot of players picked him up for the cheap, like $5 box, where he was an option in it. And it doesn't even have to be Slater, you could even run the other Dr. Stevens to help your team rush a bit faster, because you could apply a bit of control with this team, or at least make the match last a bit longer, because no defense is 100% going to defend everything. The best thing you can either do is have a fast rushing defense, which will take out the team quickly. Now the counter to that is, of course, payback or running an RNG lead against it. Or you create a defense that takes a lot of time to beat, because the longer it takes for the enemy to beat you, it means the more time you have to war and defeat the enemy that you're facing. So now I'm actually going to be subbing in Wangfa into this team just to show you the difference with 100% heal reduction applied to the enemy. Now you see Frost recovered from his infection on the first turn, but now with that 100% heal reduction applied, it's going to be more difficult. My Doc Stevens is taunted at the moment, so this is what I was talking about regarding the importance of applying focus, and that's why Slater's there. It can be difficult, of course, like Slater just rushed now, so that applies revive if any toons could be revived, but I think there was 100% heal reduction applied, and that's why it took until now for Frost to come back up. Dr. Stevens used his active skill and got rid of 100% heal reduction off of 2 characters, but it's been applied again. We're taking a look, and it is taking a few extra turns than what it would be if I didn't have that Dr. Stevens there. It's actually kind of surprising how well that S-Class Dr. Stevens works in this mainly free-to-play defense team, because there are toons you could sub in for Rosita and Slater, as I mentioned before, and even Frost himself. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you got some creative ideas on how to combat the Trader being used on attack. I do plan on coming out with more videos regarding the Trader, just because of how prevalent I see him being in the future and currently right now.